Why would just a mom, conservative mom, Jesus loving mom with no political power, no political background, no prestige, no influence whatsoever in the political world, decide to run for office during one of the most charged and hostile political environments in American history? That's what we're going to dive in today. You're going to find out who that mom is and how she got herself on the ballot, having no experience whatsoever. If you have ever wondered, gee, maybe I should run for office, or maybe you were like this mom we're about to talk about who hated politics but loved people, this is the episode for you. Welcome to Worthy Woman Healing. I am Lisa Czak, one of the co-hosts, along with my beautiful daughter,
Elliana Faye.
And don't forget to like, most importantly, subscribe. We love our subscribers. Thank you so much. We appreciate every single one of you. And we love hearing from you. If something really pulls at your heart and you want to make a comment, feel free to do so in comments. We absolutely love that so much. And let's get started. Let's figure out who this mom is. Before we get started, we want to invite you to our twice a month healing group. The election is happening. And by the time this airs, you're going to already know who the next president of the United States is. And you might be just beside yourself, right? You just might have so many feelings about it. And we have a safe space. It's a non-political space. It's a healing space where you can actually process and heal those emotions that you're feeling so that you can still show up in your life regardless of who is in power, because we know who's the ultimate one in power. Who?
Jesus.
Jesus, the ultimate one in power. So as long as we know Jesus and God are in power, we're all going to be okay, no matter who the president is. But if you're having trouble processing this, we don't want you spewing your anger and your feelings. Even if your guy or girl gets elected, right? You don't want to be gloating. You don't want to be inflammatory, right? You don't want to be this, ha ha, Trump got elected, ha ha, the other one got elected, right? Whatever. You don't want to be that person. So we can help you with that. So Steve's going to drop the link in comments to Worthy Woman Healing Group. And the best part about this group is you get to come on our retreat that we're having in January 30th to February 3rd in the Caribbean to just focus on yourself. So, okay, we got all that out of the way. So where are we going to start with this? Who is this crazy mom that hated politics, had no political power, influence, prestige, money? Who was she to go and run for office? And why did she do it? And how did she do it? If you ever wondered, how do you even get on the ballot? Listen and lean into this.
Well, for those of you who don't know, in addition to this, I'm also a political science major, about to graduate. Anyway, yeah, I've had the opportunity to intern at some different in the legislature and get to see. Don't zone out with me, people. Stay with me, okay? Because I know this is something Mom used to zone out on a lot. So, yeah, I like to indoctrinate my family and friends. It's great, but no.
Why did you indoctrinate me?
Huh?
Indoctrinate me. You did.
Okay, great. Thank you for the permission. But yeah, so being a political science major may sound like the most dreadful thing to a lot of people. And I've had the reaction of, ew, you're a political science major? And I'm like, yes, I am. But something that one of my professors always said was, you may not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you. And it's so true. And so interning at the legislature, I was like, this one day earlier this year, I was just sitting there and I was like, I think mom should run for office.
What? I
And
remember that.
and I came home and I was like, "Hey mom, what do you think about this?" And she was like, knowing full well that you hate politics, you want nothing to do with it, that you were out of it. But I was like, but they're talking about issues that are actually kind of related to what you care about, like sex trafficking and all these different things. And at the time, also, I was canvassing for an organization, which basically just means like door knocking for different candidates, going and talking to voters. And my partner had gone away for a different job, and I needed somebody to come with me. And so you volunteered yourself because you wanted to get skinny. Um,
Two reasons. I wanted to keep, let's say, priority. I wanted to be
I was
skinny
getting there.
and be safe.
Yes. Yes. And you ended up loving it. You can talk about that.
Yeah. So when she said that her door knocking partner was leaving, I was like, oh, hell no, you're not going to be knocking on strangers' doors, especially in this politically charged environment, right? No. And it is true. Elliana, the first time she did door knocking, she got super skinny. It was the summer of skinny. Like, because you're walking all the time. You're walking and you're knocking, right? That's what you're doing. And I was jealous. I was like, you're eating all these carbs and just eating, and yet you're so skinny. So yeah, I wanted to be skinny. And anyone else want to be skinny? Drop in comments if you want to be skinny too. So, and then yeah, I wanted to keep you safe. And I was going with you anyway. And I was like, I'm not supposed to be paid for this. So I signed
So then
up.
you signed up. Then you got the foot in the door with politics, and then it's all
Yeah.
down there.
And I absolutely I couldn't believe how much I loved meeting people to hear what was on their mind. What became clear to me is they don't feel they have a voice. They don't. The average American citizen does not feel that they have a voice, which is why they go crazy on social media fighting each other, because they want their voice to be heard. And the other thing that became clear to me, because I went totally off script, by the way, right? We had a script. We were supposed to knock on the door and read from the script. Of course, I went off script. But one thing that struck me was this one question I had to ask was, what do you think is the most pressing issue in America today? Also, what do you think is, the biggest issue that could impact your family? Everyone said immigration and economy, pretty much across the board. And when they said immigration, that kind of got me thinking, because I thought, that's how, like, there's all these Asian spas here that aren't really spas, they're brothels that sex traffickers fly in these women from Asia, and they put them in these brothels to work, to give massages to American men with happy endings, if you get my drift, right?
Yeah.
They're basically sex slaves. And they come in through the border, right? So, of course, I was like, oh, tell me more. What do you mean what about immigration, is affecting you, or what, you're passionate about? And again, they would say about how illegal aliens are taking away our rights. And then I'd say, hey, did you know that a significant amount of illegal people here in this country are women who have been sex trafficked? They're like, what? No. I thought that just happened in third world countries. No, it does not. And then I say to them, it's happening right here in Mount Juliet, right here where you live. So we were door knocking for a conservative organization, and they listed all the issues that people could choose from that are happening in America today. And sex trafficking was not on there. Human trafficking was not on there at all. And this shocked me. I even asked the organization why it's not on there. And they said, because it's not an issue. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, sex trafficking.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people maybe group it in with immigration, but they did blatantly say, like, this is not it. And so you saw that, and I saw kind of a spark and a switch go off, and you were like, oh, I could run for office and kind of pass laws that go after this. Or really also what inspired it, and I kind of want to bring this up, was the fact that there was a bill that mirrored like protecting what happened to Nana, if we want to talk about that a little bit,
Mhm.
you were going to testify on. And I remember tracking that bill. I was tracking that bill for the my job at the time. And I was like, "Hey, why don't you come in and testify about this?" And you were like, "Oh, that's so scary. I don't want to do that. I'm in front of like political people." And I was like, "No, but that's kind of what you're there for." And people, um, Americans forget that we have a voice and that, you can use your voice by going to testify in legislative sessions and going to run for office and vote. And I harp on you, I harp on my like friends and other family, and then pretty much everybody that will listen to me even a little bit. I'm like, I had just dragged my boyfriend to go vote with me because I was like, you have to vote. And I'm telling all my friends, I'm like, did y'all vote yet? Um, and so anyway, off my soapbox on that, if you want to talk a little about a bit about like your how you almost got to testify.
You are only as sick as your secrets. It is time to stop suffering in silence and join other women who are also on a healing journey, who are being raw, real, vulnerable, and honest with what they are going through in their life, what they have been through in their life. And wherever two or more are gathered, we know God is with us. It says it right there in the Bible. So there is power to group healing. Miracles happen in there. You have one woman sharing, opening up her heart. Suddenly everyone else in the group is saying, yeah, I've experienced that. I'm not the only one. There's such power in knowing that you are not alone in your suffering. You are not alone in your healing. And we meet twice a month. And in between those times, a lot happens, right? And it's important that you have time in between the sessions to practice the healing technique that I teach you, so you can come back into the group and celebrate with the other women. Hey, I actually remembered to do the healing technique in that moment. That trigger didn't derail me anymore. But it's practice. I'm also a personal trainer, right? You don't just get a six-pack abs by doing one sit-up. You have to keep doing it over and over again. You don't run a marathon. You don't go out and run 13.1 miles for a half marathon the first time, right? You practice running a little bit every day. And that is what we do in Worthy Woman Healing Group. Join today and tell yourself, I'm going to give this a 3-month commitment minimum, because I know I need time to practice outside of these sessions, and come in and get guidance from the other women on how to actually heal all of these wounds, heal my mind, body, and soul, one trigger at a time. You are worth it. Yeah, I did, because of this bill. This is another thing that was not on the list of when we were door knocking of issues in America, patient rights. And my mom died in the hospital all alone during COVID. It wasn't even during COVID, like the world had opened up, but the hospital still had all of these things in place, policies in place that, had I been actually following, I would have known that there was bills passed saying that the hospitals, for a certain amount of time, they had to follow COVID protocols and not let family members in. Even if the patient is dying, they're not allowed in. And so that's what happened to my mom. And that's what ignited this passion when Elliana said, hey, Mom, I think you should run for office. And it was the going in to testify. I wrote on my little index cards, and writing that out, writing my story on index cards without the emotion attached to it really helped me zone in on, I don't ever want anyone to go through this again, which is why I decided to testify. But God saved me with that, didn't he?
Yeah.
Like, you have been through
they just
enough.
never call on you.
And we didn't have to. It was approved unanimously. So now in the state of Tennessee, at least, if your loved one is dying in the hospital or just in the hospital, you have every right to go and see them. And they have
Yeah.
every right to ask for an advocate to come in there. So no one is ever going to go through what my mom went through in the state of Tennessee. So after that whole thing, when that bill was passed, I was like, I was on fire. I went from hating politics. I still am not a fan of politicians, right?
Right.
These career politicians, that's not
Mhm.
what, and that's what I was running against. We'll get to that in a minute.
Mhm.
But that's what set my passion on fire. And I got to be honest, I was really ashamed of myself that for all of these years, I was not involved in anything political, could have
Mhm.
cared less who was voting, who was going to be president. I didn't follow any of the issues. I was really ashamed. I had to go to God and ask for forgiveness on that and then
Mhm.
get through some blame. I was blaming myself. If I was involved, I could have stopped my mom from this happening to her. I could have gone to my legislator and said, hey, let's write a bill so that patients aren't dying alone for any reason, right? And it got me thinking, though. I was like, I wonder, I can't be the only one who thinks this. I bet you, drop in comments if you're like me, where you don't want anything to do with politics. You don't really, you'll vote maybe, or maybe you won't vote. Like you just don't care. You don't want to be involved. You've given up on politics and legislation. Maybe you don't even know what legislation is. I didn't even know really what a bill was, what that meant, how you
Mhm.
pass a bill. I learned everything from you, Eliana.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. Well, it's something that isn't taught in school, really. I mean, you learn about maybe the federal government, you learn about, the executive, the judicial, um, the legislative branches, but you
Mm.
don't learn about state and local politics. And that's something that in my degree, I've had amazing professors who really like hone in on the fact that the most important level of politics is like the local.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I had no idea. I could have cared less. When I did vote, I never researched who was in office.
Hmm.
Like I said, I really had to do some healing on myself regarding that and some forgiveness work on myself, right? For not
Yeah.
getting involved.
Yeah.
And when Eliana brought this up, she's like, Mom, I can help you. I know what to do. I know how to get you on the ballot. Drop in
Right.
comments, yes or no. Do you know if you wanted to run for office today? First of all, do you even know what you could run for? And second of all, do you know how you would do it? Because I had zero clue. If it wasn't for Eliana,
Mhm.
if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't know. And like I had to go down to the election office
Mhm.
and I had to fill out paperwork, which was scary.
Mhm.
Like they took me in a back room
Yeah.
and my friend was with me and I said, listen, I'm a sex trafficking survivor. You're not taking me in any back room
Mhm.
without
Yeah.
someone else present. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
This is not happening.
Yeah.
And it was very negative though. I will say this from the
It
time
is.
what?
I said it usually is.
From the time I stepped into that office, they looked at me like I had three heads. Because who is this
Mhm.
crazy woman coming in here? Right? Just mom. We don't know her. She's just some
Right.
mom who says, I want to run for office. They were not expecting that because my incumbent is a person you're running against. She's been in office for like 11 years. And people really
Yep.
weren't running against her.
Mhm.
And I didn't know anything about her, right? I had nothing against her. I didn't know anything about her. I just knew what I wanted to do. I didn't care what she was doing,
Right.
what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I can see why a lot of, just regular citizens maybe are afraid to do it or they dip their toe in because from the very start I got resistance. Well, how long have you been here? And have you done that? It was like, who am I to run for office?
Mhm.
Was the feeling I was getting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And now I think my brain is totally healed from it because there was comments that were made that I can't even remember now. Do you remember?
Um,
You should have
no, I don't, and I wouldn't really rehash it either. But I think,
anyway, yeah,
yeah.
they sent me, so they give me a form and they're like, you have to get 25 signatures technically. Good signatures. I'm like, what's a good signature? Meaning they have to be registered voters. They have to live
Right.
in your district, right?
Yes.
They have to have voted in so many primaries in order
Mhm.
for their signature to count. It has to be the right
Well,
address that matches their voter card. There's all these details. And I was like, what? And I
yeah.
was freaking out. I was like, do I even know 25 people here in Tennessee that would do this?
Well, you
That
ended
have all
up
these.
getting most of them from our street that we
I
lived
know.
on,
Yeah,
which
I'll get to
is
that. I'll get to that in a second because I said, Eliana, where am I going to get 20? Oh, no, they said 25. But then they said, actually, the lady goes, don't you come up in here with your 25 signatures, 25 bad signatures. You better get double.
yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay. So now I need 50 signatures with all these parameters. And I looked at you and I said, where am I going to get 50 signatures? And what'd you say?
Well, we had to get the voter list. And I was
that.
Yeah, and I was like, "You'll get it. Like, you'll just go door to door like you've been with other organization that you worked for."
Yeah, you were like, Mom, you've been doing this for months now, knocking on
Yeah,
people's doors. And you
exactly.
told me, I don't know if you remember this, you said, just do our street. Our street
Right.
alone will give you. I was like,
Yeah, and it did. I mean, you got more. You got 50. And they
yeah,
were all, they were all proved and good. But the thing, and I'm sorry if I'm cutting you off here, but um, the thing that ultimately kind of got us off the ballot, you off the ballot, not us, but I feel like it was us because I was doing it with you, was the technical thing because we had not lived here long enough for you to have voted in a certain number of primaries. And primary elections are like for local offices like school board or just like smaller scale stuff. And that is so we registered you as a Republican. And that's ultimately what they got you on because you weren't like a, a seasoned or a committed Republican to the party.
yeah. Well, just to back up a bit,
Yeah.
I knocked on every single door. We were living on a street, just one street,
Yeah.
the dead end. I knocked on every single door, didn't know any of those people. Every single person that I knocked on the door signed that, no matter if they were Democrat, Republican, hated politics, loved politics, across the board.
Yeah.
And because I shared my story about my mom dying alone in the hospital, and that's why I wanted to run.
Mm-hmm.
And then I asked them, what's important to you? And again, it was so clear, just like when I was door knocking for that conservative organization, when I was door knocking for myself to get into office. By the way, it was State of Representatives. That's the House of Representatives that I was running for. State House, District 57.
Yeah. So
In case
to
you're
be a
wondering.
little bit nerdy for a second, just
Yeah.
can I?
Huh?
Sorry, keep going. Never mind.
You want to say something? Go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say, sometimes people forget, and I don't know how, but they forget that there's state house and state senate and the state legislature, and then there's like the federal government, which is like the United States House of Representatives and the United States Senate, and those are two different things with two different powers. So anyway, okay, continue.
So who cares? You need to tell them why that matters.
So, obviously, like the federal government has like immense power, but technically the states they don't have to listen to like everything. There are certain things that the states like adhere to within the federal government, but states can make their own laws. And there's a reason why a state like Tennessee is so different from a state like California, because the state governments can make different regulations that impact the citizens of their state differently. So like Tennessee is a great state fiscally, whereas like, so for example, our gas prices, like we're at like $2.50 right now, whereas California is like $8 a gallon.
Okay, let me interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
So if I'm someone who's really angry about the price of gas in my state, who do I go to? This is what we want people to know. Like, I was running for state house representative, District 57. What that means is that was like the Mount Juliet area. That was like the town, the city that I was in charge of. So if I'm state representative, can you come to me and say, hey, I want to lower the price of gas in my state?
Yes, technically, you could definitely go to your representative and be like, "Hey, I'm really concerned about this, the price of gas here." Um, you could talk to them, and typically, like, there's a fiscal plan for every state that's different.
What
Um,
I'm trying to get across is, why do people need to go to their, you hear this all the time, call your state representative, call your state. Why do they need to care about who is their state representative, and why would they go to them?
yeah, so you would go to them, it depends on the issue, but you go to them for, like, just any specific issue pertaining to the district that you live in, the area that you live in, like, that you want to see a change in. So it could be something with the price of gas, or to narrow it down, like, if we're talking about what we were talking about earlier with Mount Juliet, you could go and talk to them about these spas, these illicit spas, and ask if there's a solution, um, to preventing them in the state, or
Mhm.
in the like the city area that you live in, and what legislation would need to be passed,
Right.
and
So
you
that's
can work on drafting law, like a law that will then be heard, in whenever the legislative session is, and that just means, like, whenever
right.
they, like, hear the bills. Um,
Right. So you're the citizen. I want to make this clear. The citizen is not writing the law. You are going
well,
to your state representative and saying, this is the issue I see in my community. What can we do about it? And then
right, and
they take over, and they have people that write the bills for you. Because a lot of people, including myself, would get intimidated, right? If I want to make sure people don't die alone in the hospital, or I want
Mhm.
to make sure that, we can give relief to these women working in these illicit spas, right?
Right,
What would trip me up and trip a lot of people up is, I don't know how to write a bill. I don't know what I'm
yeah,
doing.
yeah,
All you need to know is that, hey, there's an issue here, and it's
right,
affecting me, it's affecting my family, my
mhm,
community. And then you go to your state representative to see what can be done about it and see how receptive they are, right? It's
yes,
election. When during an election, they're going to be super receptive, right? They're
right.
going to be leaning in. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
gotta
when they're
take
up
care of this.
for that's another thing, if there's someone up for reelection and they're trying to appease their people,
Right.
that's definitely a good time to kinda swoop in. But yes, if you have an issue, if you see if you know, if that's what they're there for. Like, that's what the state legislature is there for. That's their job, is to listen to the people that they're serving.
Yeah.
Um
Oh, wait, bingo. That's what I would say to people when I
Mhm,
was going door to door to get signatures, because I had to get, remember, I had to get 50 signatures just to get on the ballot.
mhm,
And I would say to them, I'm here to serve you.
mhm.
Well, no, I'd say I'm serving God and Jesus
Mhm.
first. And if this is, I'm going to take it as far as God and Jesus want me to. And that's when I would say, what do you want? And it was so clear to me. People are starving, they're thirsty to share their voice, to share
Yeah.
what's on their heart, what's
Mhm.
really affecting them, what's they're concerned about. And no one's listening to them. I'm
No.
still convinced, and I may run again in 2 years. I might
Mhm.
actually run. I had some great support from the Republican Party here. And even when they found out, because I'll never forget that, I actually got 53 signatures. Shocking. And no one was more shocked than me. Easily and effortlessly, I would say. That's how I know it was God. It was
Yeah.
easy and it was effortless. And I loved meeting people and hearing from
Right.
them. Turn
Right.
in my ballot. I'm definitely on the ballot. We even have, maybe we'll have Steve put up the pictures of me
Yeah.
that I actually got on the ballot. No one was more
Right.
shocked than me, right? That
Yeah.
still kind of in shock.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I was at a Republican meeting when you called me and you said, Mom, they're kicking you off the ballot. I was like, what? What are you talking about? They sent a certified letter. They purposely sent it on a Friday, knowing that I couldn't do anything about it till Monday.
Mhm.
And I only had till Monday to appeal it. So they knew I
Mhm.
couldn't. Like, my hands were tied. And I found out that this happens to a lot of people. They call us transplants, right?
Mhm.
People who move to Tennessee from a different state.
Yep.
And then the Republican Party or your incumbent doesn't want you to run against them.
Mhm.
And so they contest it. So
Yes.
my candidacy was contested. I'm
Mhm.
not sure by who, probably the person I was running against. I have no idea because they never told me. I asked, no one ever answered. And this is a big thing. So just like that, then all of a sudden I was off. And no one ever told me that, when I handed it into the election office, they didn't say, hey, you also have to, contact the Republican Party, and there's got rules and guidelines. You have to meet with them so you can actually get on the ballot.
Yeah.
I was like, it's done.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
But anyway, that was a little soul crushing.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of fun writing my name in the ballot when I voted.
Yeah, we
Wrote
just did that actually,
instead
even
of
now. Yeah.
instead of voting for the person who I was running against as state
Mhm.
representative, I wrote myself in.
Yeah. Yeah, same. I wrote you in too.
And so did some other people. So if there's an issue weighing heavy on you in your community, like where you live,
Mhm.
right? Or any issue, I guess.
Mhm.
Like, let's have Steve put up what are the 3 steps that you take so you can actually do something about it?
So first you wanna, um, find out who your representative or senator is, and typically you can do that by looking up, like, on the state legislature website. So if you type in, like, Tennessee State Legislature, something should come up that indicates that, and then typically there's somewhere where you can put in your address where you can find out who they are, and then you wanna just contact them. I think the best way is to call,
Mhm.
um, and a couple points with this is typically their assistant is gonna answer, so you wanna make sure to be very kind, very, like, cordial, very patient, especially if it's during a very busy season, and you wanna introduce yourself, tell them that you live in the district, of the representative or the senator that you're calling, because if you don't, they might automatically filter you out. So tell them that you live there, and then just briefly and succinctly describe the issue that you wanna talk about and ask if they have openings for a meeting. Sometimes assistants gatekeep very well and they don't want meetings. I've worked in it, so I've seen it firsthand. So if that's the case, just ask them if there's someone else that they can direct you to, or if they could just make a note, just for that representative or senator to look into. If you get as far as a meeting, I would expect it to be probably no more than 15 minutes. I would like be able to describe what your issue is in that time. Sometimes they'll like if you get along well, they'll give you longer. But be very clear, have an idea of like exactly what you want to say to them because they're very busy and they want to hear you, but you also want to make sure like that you come in prepared. And again, just like basic decency of being kind, of being polite, like thanking them for their time. They really appreciate that because they get a lot of I know we harp on politicians a lot, but they do get a lot of like flack and they are used to being disrespected. So when someone comes in with an issue and they're respectful and kind and like just cognizant of their time, that's really helpful. So I don't know if that was 3, that was probably like 3 expanded. And then also after like if you get a meeting, just offer to follow up, and um if they direct you, like make sure if they ask you like reach out again, make sure that you do that. So yeah, I think that those would be like the steps. I don't know if you
And
have
the other thing, like that I didn't realize that you can actually go on like Tennessee.gov
Mhm.
and see what bills. So for me, I'm very
Yes.
interested in sex trafficking bills.
Right.
So I have done that. I've gone on their site, so it's your state.gov,
Well,
and you look what?
it can't it yeah, it depends. So with that, every state has its own constitution. That might blow some people's minds.
I didn't know
But
that.
yeah, so
Seriously.
if you look up if you I wouldn't necessarily put in .gov, I would just look up like Tennessee, like the Tennessee state constitution, or like you can go on the legislature site and look up bills, and then you can also look up prospective bills that are coming up. It's not hard to find. People just don't know like where to look sometimes or to look, but it's all there. It's usually pretty like out in the open. And another thing too, if you are like confused or have a question about a bill, that's another reason. Like you can call an office and be like, hey, like I'm curious about this. I could do a whole training probably on like how to contact a legislator's office, how to ask to testify, work on a bill with them, stuff like that, and actually accomplish it. But that's like a whole other episode.
Oh, we could actually do that. That'd be a great idea. Drop in comments if that's something you're interested in, and we'll set you up with that. The other thing that's really important, if there's already, like in my case with my mom, right? We call it Nana's bill. That's not what it was called.
No.
It was HB 1884 or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what I realized, because I did sit in on some things with Elliana, bills that were being, brought to the committees, what I realized is when people showed up and testified, that means you're just sharing your story with the committee. And when they did that, these bills were passed like unanimous. It was crazy. There's a human factor. So if there's something you're really passionate about, like this is something I'm going to do, right? If there's sex trafficking bills or bills that where I have experience in that, exploitation, abuse, and it's about to go to committee, or I see that it's, where can you see where the bills are that are about to be presented?
So that'll differ for every site and every state, but typically there's like if you type in the bill number, so like your example HB 1883, which means House Bill 1883. If you type that into whatever the state legislature site, typically it'll come up and it'll say that it was put on notice for the Judiciary Committee. And when that basically means that whoever is running the bill like is pushing it through and it's going to be heard in that committee. And another big thing with the state legislatures, just legislators in general, is if it has to pass through committees. If it doesn't, if it dies in committee, it dies. It never goes to be heard by both the House and Senate. I can get up on this very, very fast though, but yeah.
The point is there something, if there's an issue that you're really passionate about, contact your state legislator and offer to testify, because they will love that you are number one in support of their bill.
Yeah.
Go ahead. And number two, and that you're willing to share your story, because it's more likely that the bill is going to be passed if there's a person testifying.
Yeah. And another thing with that, like you have to make sure that you contact the committee too, not just the person running it. You want to do both. So yeah, that's a whole other thing though.
Right. So I guess the overall point of this also, with
Use
a
your
lot
voice.
of points, is that, okay, so this was after the election. So we don't know who's president right now when this airs, right? So it doesn't matter, because what we're saying to you is what's more important is your state legislator. Even if you're a Democrat and your state legislator in your district is a Republican, it doesn't matter. You can still go to your state legislator and say, hey, this is an issue that's affecting me, that's affecting whatever,
Well,
what?
Yeah. And another thing too, like if you have an issue, if you have a specific issue, you don't necessarily have to go to the representative or the senator in your district. You can, especially at the state level, like if you know that there is this issue specific person, you can go to them instead. So that is another thing to keep in mind.
Oh, that's true. Because
party lines. Yeah.
That is true. It was the same party, but actually a senator stepped in and was willing to help me. He said, hey, let's run you as an independent.
Right.
I think you would win, because she's been in office 11 years. She's not doing, but she said she's not doing anything that people want. And so you can go to a senator also. The point is don't get so worked up if your guy or girl didn't get elected, you can still make a difference. You can still be involved. The mere fact that I'm even doing this episode right now is proof that somebody who hates politics but loves people can actually make a difference. And stay tuned, because I don't know, in 2 years, I might be running again. We don't know.
Yeah.
We're not sure. We already had it planned out. You were going to be my legislative assistant. That was our plan in January. Like, well, now what are we going to do?
I know.
And I just really encourage you. I want to see, my goal, my mission would be to have more just normal, average citizens like me with no political background, power, prestige running for office, and getting those career politicians kicked to the curb.
Yeah.
Because not what it was intended. It wasn't meant to be an 11, 12-year stint in the House of Representatives. That is not what our forefathers intended.
Yeah. All right, my phone's about to die, so.
All right. Well, do you want to say a prayer?
Yes. Lord, I thank you for the opportunity to talk about this. I pray that people realize that they can use their voice in the political world. I pray just peace over everyone as they're following the election, just knowing that you are our ultimate king above all. And I just pray wisdom over all our political leaders and all the choices they make, Lord. I pray that you bring the good people in and the bad people out, Lord. And I just pray that people remember that they can use their voice and that they do so as they feel the need to, and that the hearts of the political leaders will be open to listen to them. And I pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. And if you have any questions about how to run for office, how to contact your legislator or your senators, please drop in comments, contact us, and Elliana will help you.
And always remember,
you are worth it.